Welcome to Nuked Radio. This is episode 107. Today is Tuesday, April 16th, 2013. I'm your host, Christina Consolo, and with me today is Noki Travers from radwatch.info. Jules is around after just getting out of a 4-hour radio marathon this morning that was completely unscheduled.
But it was fun.
It was fun, and I've always wanted to know what it was like to just roll right out of bed and get on the radio, and now I know.
Yeah, and it was good. Lots of creativity.
I hadn't even read anything. You're hitting me up with, like, earthquakes and the Boston thing, and I'm like, hold on. But, yeah, we got up to date. We all helped each other get up to date, and we had a lot of great people in chat. It's really good to be back, and I'm still getting caught up. I should have the 3 Mile Island anniversary shows uploaded today, and on Saturday I was on United We Strike Worldwide Radio Marathon, and I'll be uploading that too. It's a global radiation update. It's 30 minutes long, and it's done kind of in a style of like a PSA. I also need to give very special thanks to Noki and Papa Peeps and Libby from Nuclear Hot Seat, who is now on UCY as well, Drew Lamb from Double Crossed Radio, and, of course, the ever-present Jules for covering for me while I was on vacation.
Aww.
There was a big gap in our mutation data because we've never received any images from Mexico. So now I know that there's mutations happening there as well. And, in fact, when I upload this show to YouTube, I will enclose all of the pictures of mutations and damage to plants and palm trees that I saw while I was there. Before we get into Mexico, though, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the Boston bombing because so much is changing. As you guys probably have heard, so far there's 3 confirmed dead, 140 injured, and the blame is being placed pretty much everywhere. Times of India is reporting it as a domestic terrorist act. Captain Obvious, also known as DHS, is calling it terrorism, and GOP congressmen are saying that it has a Mideast signature, and Wolf Blitzer went as far as blaming it on the Tea Party yesterday, which I called because it happened on tax day. I knew they were going to look to the Tea Party right away, and no doubt that the story is going to dominate a lot of the news over the upcoming weeks. And that's why we really need to pay attention to everything else that is going on, including the stock market. I had a little bomb threat of my own the day we left from Mexico, and I was telling Noki about this story yesterday, and this was before the Boston bombing happened. We were on the phone yesterday morning. And when we got to Detroit Metro on April 1st, we had only been in the terminal for maybe 15 minutes, and there were like 100 other people that we knew from my daughter's school that were going on this trip. And all the kids are like wearing shorts and flip-flops, and it was like 25 degrees out this morning, but they're all thinking they're just going to hop on the plane. And we were standing in line to go through the security check, and it was really backed up. I mean, there were probably 300 people in line ahead of us. And all of a sudden we hear this yelling going on down the terminal, and everybody got quiet, and then like conversations restarted, and then we hear the yelling again, and then all these security people start running towards this area. And what's interesting is there were at least 2 people in line that were waiting to go through the security checks that ran with. So those were like air marshals or undercover TSA agents. And about 5 minutes later, they told us that we need to evacuate the terminal. So everybody goes outside, and Wayne County cops are pulling up. The bomb squad pulls up. A couple of Department of Homeland Security vans. They closed the airspace over the airport, so there's no planes flying, but there's a ton of like police helicopters that were already in the air over the airport, which was really strange because they had like a 5-minute notice before we went outside.
That's what they're all there waiting for.
They were all there waiting.
They come out of the woodwork when there's a bomb scare. The place is flooded with feds, just like in Boston. They're ready to go, aren't they, Christine?
They were ready to go. And so this dragged on for about an hour and a half after we were standing outside for a while, and a lot of these kids are like freezing, and they told us to walk to the next terminal, which is about a mile away, and it's actually been closed down for a couple years. So they reopened this like gutted terminal so everybody could wait inside because it was so cold out that morning. And I mean, there's people laying all over the floor on their suitcases and like kids that went back to sleep and a lot of people standing around. And I went outside to kind of see what was going on because by now it was light out. And there were a couple of news trucks there. And I was talking to some of the people that work at the airport that were outside having a cigarette break. And they were all kind of like, yeah, it's a little scary, to have it happen here. But on the way home, when we got back to Detroit a week later, because we didn't really have, we watched CNN a little bit while we were there in Mexico. But, so and most of what was being talked about was North Korea. I asked the lady who drove us from the airport to our car whatever happened with this bomb threat, and she goes, oh, every couple of years they need to do this so they can justify all of their security, and so they can bring in more security. She's like, I worked in a jail for years, I know how the system works, these incidents are all fake. And I was like, wow, my kids are looking at me like, Mom, did this lady just say this? Like, she was really, really open about it, and I had a nice little conversation with her before I got off the bus, too. And so...
it's just a little drill.
It's just a little drill. And speaking of drills, there's one at 3 Mile Island today. Towards the end of the show, we're going to be bringing on Mary Osbourne to update us on what's going on there.
That's great because, we have to have hundreds of people involved in that one.
Yeah, and they were warning people on Penn Live yesterday not to get worried if they see first responders and flashing lights at TMI.
Oh, yeah,
But they also said if you hear the sirens go off, you should take those seriously because they weren't planning on using any sirens.
I'll remember that. Okay.
This was actually the first terrorism drill they're doing at any nuke plant in the U.S. ever.
Unbelievable. To be the first to be formally drilled on its ability to respond to an airstrike. So I thought what I was reading was they were planning on running some little plane into something just to see how that worked. It is. Through an airplane crash or somehow aircraft as a weapon is prominently displayed in the drill release. So who knows what they'll do.
Yeah, isn't Boston your hometown, Noki?
Oh, yeah. And that marathon is the biggest thing. As a kid, I remember being thrilled. One year, this Kenyan just blew away the field. He didn't wear shoes,
Yeah.
This skinny little black kid, he just blew everybody away. And it's a really big deal. And, to have the first real on our soil hit again to happen. I used to play pool right across the street. My sister lived in a high-rise across the street. My dad worked around the corner. So,
well, it's very, very
I'm
sad.
really glad that they didn't go with the really heavy-duty explosives.
Did you get a look at the video of that first explosion? You could
actually
see the shockwave.
Yep, and and I noticed there's one runner that falls down, and at first I thought it was the shock wave, and then I noticed that the fence had blown out right there, and they showed it so many times, I finally saw this piece of cement or something fly into the guy's knee, bounce off, he falls down, but I could see the shock wave stagger several of the runners.
Yeah.
And then it got smoky. And it took me forever before they showed the second one. You can hear it. I couldn't hear it. Well, then later on in the evening, they came up with another cell phone of that down the street. So, when it's your hometown, it strikes a chord with you. It's not, and it couple of coincidences. It's Patriot Day. They hit something happened at the JFK library.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it looks like they had an explosion or a fire there or something. I saw pictures of the outside of the building.
They certainly haven't eliminated that as it's too coincidental, etc.
Yeah.
So you have to breathe and not become afraid. There's been so many of these things. We have so many things we could be really afraid of all the time.
Yeah, well, one thing I was pretty afraid of is the Geiger readings that I got on the plane. If you guys have seen some of the pictures or videos that I posted when I got back, but the levels up in the air were just astronomical. And I sent the videos to Loren as soon as I got back and said, hey, what do you think of this? And she was like, wow, I knew our air column was contaminated. I had no idea that it was this bad. The highest numbers that I got was 1395 CPMs, and that was over the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, the Geiger stayed over 1100 for a duration of almost 3 hours. So I calculated what that total count was, and I wish I knew the inspector had a total count function, because I would have just put it on total count and ran that for the entire trip. I got it probably 200,000, hit with 200,000 counts just in that one leg of the flight. And we had 4 flights, Detroit to Charlotte, Charlotte to Cancun, and then back.
All right, so 200,000, so...
Total counts, just on one leg of the journey, and that's a low estimate.
Now, a typical American average, if you run 32 or 33 CPM, you'll be getting around 2,000 an hour. So that was 200,000 in how many hours?
In about 3 hours.
Yeah, so...
I mean, it's just ungodly. And, I know from that level of exposure that it would be about 3 weeks before I would exhibit any symptoms. So I'm waiting, because it'll be a week from now that should really hit me. But the day after...
30, 40 times your typical exposure levels. So.
Right. And, there were babies on the plane and little kids. And one thing that I did notice, because I looked very closely at all these people that are working on the flight, the stewardesses and stewards and pilots, is that flight from Charlotte to Cancun, every crew member had major skin issues going on. One guy looked like he had hives. I was actually looking for thyroid scars on them. And all of them had skin issues, and one of the women, she had like this really, really flaky skin all over her face, and she had like tons of makeup on to cover it up, and it was like, wow, what's going on?
That's really rough when they try and cover it up. So you have this high rads run down there. Yeah,
and our eyes were all burning and watering on the plane, big time.
Right.
And that was really the only symptom that we had. And the next day, though, we ended up getting in late because of all these this bomb threat delay, and they had to reschedule like 7,000 people from the terminal. Okay. So everything got pushed behind, incling
you guys got a
flight from
4 hour flight.
So, yeah, at first they told us we should just go home and come back the next day. And I was like, no. No, we're not doing that. We live an hour and a half from the airport. We weren't going to go back to our car, and, our car is like off-site at a parking lot, and then go home and then come back the next day. It was like, We'll fly to Charlotte. If we miss our plane, they'll have to put us up in a hotel. And luckily there were so many people on our plane that had that connecting flight that they held the flight. So it worked out all right. But the next morning, when I woke up in Mexico, we hadn't gone swimming or anything. We got there, we ate, we went back to our room, unpacked, and just like hung out that night. I wake up and my feet are really swollen. And I've never had a problem like that except in like really like late in my pregnancies where I retain fluid at that level. So I was like, that's interesting. What's going on here? And so I ended up like kind of like just hanging out at the pool that day, keeping my feet up. I only had like 2 drinks, and I drank lots of water. And the next day I wake up, and it's even worse. By the 3rd day, the swelling had gone all the way up to my knees. And like the skin was stretched out. Like it was really bad. So I was like, all right, I gotta see a doctor about this. This is not right. What's happening here? I hadn't eaten any fish, anything I could have been allergic to.
Right. I've only been in Mexico for 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
I felt fine. Like, I felt great. Being out in the sunshine alone is enough to just, like, boost your serotonin levels. And, other than that, I felt fine, but my feet were really starting to hurt. Like, it was hurting to stand up. And all I could wear were the freaking hotel slippers that they give you. I couldn't even put my feet in flip-flops. So I go to this doctor that's part of the hotel. Like, she has a clinic on site. And she takes one look at them and says, you are either in kidney failure or heart failure, and you need to go to the hospital right away. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Thank God I have Travel Guard, because I bought insurance because of all the health problems I was already having, just in case. For like $80, you're covered for everything. What I didn't know is Mexican hospitals, you have to pay up front. You have to give them like a big deposit if it's a private hospital, or they won't see you. So I end up having to go to another city to go to the hospital, and I get there, and they're like, well, we need $1,500 before we can check you in.
This is Mexico.
I have like
we need money.
Cash on me that's supposed to last the whole week. And so I had a credit card, and I had my daughter's credit card that she said just in case. She gave it to me before I left the hotel. And I gave them all of my cash and all of our credit cards, and it still didn't equal $1,500, so they wouldn't see me. This was Hospital Maya Riviera. So I'm like pissed now, because I'm, take this cab ride. It's like $50 for the cab ride to get to the hospital. They won't see me. Now I don't know where to go. And there was a Russian guy there, too, who was, like, bitching at them because he saw what was happening with me, and he had his wife there for something similar. And I didn't even think to ask them how far they had flown from. But anyway, I go outside, and I'm, like, crying on the stairs of the hospital. It was a pretty low
high point to the trip so far. Grooving in Mexico.
And the cab driver who had driven me there was still there talking to his friends that were waiting for patients.
He was your angel in disguise.
He was my angel, and he came up to me, and he's like, Senorita, why are you crying? And I tell him the story. And he's like, I'll take you to another hospital. Don't worry. So car, we drive to Playa del Carmen. He took me to a diving hospital where they treat like divers with issues, divers with the bends. They have like chambers to put them in and stuff.
People who get bitten by poisonous fish.
Or jellyfish.
Or an anaphylactic shock when they walk in the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I guess now you can include getting nuked on the plane, too, maybe. So this doctor doesn't speak any English, though. None. Like, just really, like, is about as good as my Spanish as his English. So it took a while to do the exam. And he brought out all these, like, charts and, like, would point to them, like, does this hurt? Does that hurt? And then his exam was, like, really thorough. He checked everything, and my blood pressure and my heart were fine. But when he did the little knocking test on my back, where they, like, knock on your lungs and they knock on your kidneys, I just about flew off the stool. So he had me lay down, and he's, like, pressing on me everywhere, and then he goes and he gets this, like, diagram of the female, anatomy. And he told me that I had, like, a massive bladder and kidney infection. So he said the treatment, is an IV. It's 3 different things in the IV, 2 antibiotics, and a happy shot.
You are in Mexico, after all.
It's tequila. And so he gives me this, he has me lay down, and he fills this, like, giant syringe, and he just stood there. He didn't give me, like, an IV bag. He just stuck it in my arm and stood there for, like, 10 minutes, like, slowly injecting it. And he'd be like, you feel that? You feel that? Oh, yeah, I feel that. And after that, I had to keep laying down.
We can't really afford IV bags. We use
Right.
a hypodermic.
Oh,
But I've got some really good stuff in there. You'll love it. You're really going to love this.
Oh, I wish I took pictures in this room. Like, there was, like, every piece of hospital equipment you could imagine was shoved into this room.
You didn't get a picture of this guy?
No,
Oh,
Dr.
I'm sorry.
Alfonso.
Yeah.
And so anyway, like, after laying down for about 10 minutes, he let me sit up, and I was pretty dizzy. Like, I was really feeling it. And then he charged me $60 for
Man.
this exam that took an hour, and $20 for the IV.
See?
It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, in the States, this would have been like, $600 probably, and a hospital stay.
You gotta love Mexico.
Yeah, so, and then he put me on antibiotics and all kinds of, like, anti-inflammatory stuff. So we had to go to the pharmacia that doesn't accept dollars. So there was, like, a big problem with that because I needed pesos. And this cab driver just, like, took care of everything. Like, he sat in the waiting room for an hour waiting for me. And thank God I ran into this guy, Julio.
You find that more in other countries. In this country, good luck.
Yeah.
But over there, they stick with you all day. That otherwise he's got to go find another fare. And
well, I tipped him big time. I mean,
you need help, and
he spent his whole afternoon with me. And, I said to him, I'm like, you saved my life today. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I walked out of that hospital and you weren't there. It would have been like a really massive problem, and he was really sweet.
They always, it's their business to know what's going on. I'm telling you. They know the town, and they know the best place to take you. Sometimes it's their cousin's place, and they take everybody there. But you know what? You got a good guy, and he helped you just as much as anybody else did that day.
Right.
If not more,
Right. And when we got back to the hotel, he actually, like, walked me in to the lobby to make sure that I was all right, so I could, have my girls come meet me, because I was still feeling kind of woozy from the injection. But it was a massive infection, kidney infection.
Yes.
And one of the questions he asked me was, how many times had I peed in the ocean? And I'm like, I hadn't even been in the ocean yet, or in the pool before this started. And there were a lot of kids that were with us that had, like, skin issues by the end of the trip. Like, one girl was crying in the airport. She's like, I can't wait to go home. I'm so itchy and this and that. But other than that, I mean, it was absolutely wonderful. I don't know why this, like, massive infection took over, but I have an idea. It had something to do with that plane ride. And I know I really need to get a new physician, and as soon as I got back, I emailed my lawyer, and I was like, look, this is what happened. I need a new doctor. I need somebody that, is good, because I can't keep going to this guy who wants to put me on, like, Cymbalta every time I come in, or Valium, and tell me to quit worrying so much about stuff. I want to be awake. I want to know what's going on.
And just on principles.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So
don't let a man look at you. Forget it.
I was really, really hoping while I was down there that I could see somebody about getting a vitamin C IV. And I asked this guy if he could just throw some vitamin C in this giant syringe while he was at it, but he didn't do that. There are a few clinics in Mexico that do, and I was able to find someone in the Detroit area that does them.
Oh,
but
really?
She wants like $350 for her.
So you're back in the States now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I already have immune system problems big time. And so I'm not surprised this happened to me. And a few people said, would you do it again? Like knowing the outcome? And absolutely, because the time that I spent with my family, it was just, irreplaceable. And we had my oldest daughter flew from Utah to meet us there. And this was only the second time in the recent past, like we've all been together. And we basically, the whole time we were there, laid on the beach and swam with the sea turtles because there were loggerhead turtles all over the place, and they're like really playful. You can chase them, like you can swim after them, and they'll like just haul ass away from you. You can see them like really, trying to get away, and then as soon as you ignore them, they come up to you, and they come and they stick their head up like right by you. And you hear people all over going, turtle, turtle. There was like 10 of them that were probably there every day. One of them had a huge tumor on their flipper, and we couldn't get any pictures of that one. We got a couple pictures of the turtles, but we just kind of like just laid around. I brought all these books with me to read, and I brought all this stuff to do in a notebook, and I never once cracked any of that open. If I wasn't swimming, I was just staring at the ocean the whole time. It was just so nice and relaxing and beautiful. One thing I did do is I had Miss Milky's inspector with me, and I took that everywhere with me and ran it pretty much 24/7. And the rads in the air averaged about 16. Which was pretty surprising because, here in the Midwest, like right now it's 40. It's been bouncing around. I talked to you about this, Noki, yesterday, 60, 70. And even my daughters were saying, why are the numbers so much lower here than they are by us? And you start thinking, long-term exposure, wow, we're in this every day here pretty much lately. You brought it to my attention from Warren, Michigan, how high that is all the time.
There is probably a big difference between the Great Lakes and Mexico. They're not as much in the jet stream, and then you guys got this marine layer.
Somebody was asking about rads on the beach. The air readings would rarely go above 20.
Right.
But if I walked around with the Geiger and I ran it over seaweed that washed up, it would go up to 70, like every time. So the rads are definitely being concentrated in the seaweed. And this was consistent. This was every time I would measure the sand, and then I'd swipe the Geiger. As soon as it got close to the seaweed, it would start click, 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 and then all of a sudden it would go up to 70. And this was consistent. All the seaweed was like this.
They're very aggressive uptakers.
The other place where I got high rads was on the seafood bar in the hotel, because we had like this buffet set up every day that was just enormous. All this different food and stuff to pick from, and I would sneak the Geiger out of my purse with my cell phone and just run it over like the mussels or the crabs or the fish or whatever they had laid out.
Especially those shellfish.
Yeah, and the mussels were what were really high. They were running 70 consistently, and move them out, away from the mussels, it drops back down to 12. Move them over the top of the tray, it jumps right up to 60 or 70.
So were you able to enjoy a little seafood? It's a rare treat these days.
I did have some salmon in saffron sauce, and it was really good. It was like the last day I was there, I was just like, I'm just going to eat some fish today. I don't care. I'm already all puffed up. So who cares?
Oh, Jesus.
And, it was really nice. Another thing, though, another observation, and from talking to Loren so much, she gathers data wherever she goes. And I was really excited about getting a look at some of the plants down there. And as soon as we walked out of the airport and I started looking at these flower beds, it was obvious that there were mutations going on there as well. And so I photographed a lot of those around the hotel, at the airport, but it's not only mutations. There's a lot of plant damage from rain. I mean, really bad, worse than the stuff I see here. And what I noticed in Cancun's actually very close to Cuba because it sticks out like on a peninsula. You constantly have the breeze coming from the Gulf, and the rain. It only rained one day for like an hour while we were there. As soon as the rain comes in, the rads shoot up too, to about 60 or 70. I think the highest I got was like 78, 76. And the air is blowing in right off the Gulf, so that's not radon. And I got to wonder about Corexit being generated out of the Gulf that's raining down on these plants, because the damage is really significant. And when you look at like the palm trees everywhere, all of the palm trees that are sheltered around the hotels and the buildings are completely green. But when you look at all the palm trees in contrast, the ones that are out in the open along the beaches, they're all yellow. And a lot of their outside leaves are burned. And these particular palm trees that I shot an image of that I'll upload with the YouTube video, you can clearly see how healthy they look around the hotel, and the sun is on those all day. So this isn't like gamma from the sun that's burning these plants. Something is really burning these plants there. But, considering all of that, the people, just my observations of the different cities that I had to go to and the hospital and so forth, is that people there look really healthy. And, I would attribute a lot of that to probably their diet, because they eat all whole foods, they eat tons of fruit, vegetables, a lot of them grow their own food. I don't think they have the same kind of problems with the GMO stuff that we have here. And they don't eat any processed food, and they don't eat any fast food. And when you look at that population compared to the Americans that were on vacation or the Americans here, there's such a huge difference in how healthy they appear. And just from, hanging out with this cab driver all day too, and talking about like what he does, like when he's off work, and some of the people at the hotel that I talked to, they put a really high priority on their free time, on their family life, on their sports. They play soccer, and they hang out with their kids and their grandkids and, their cousins, and like being with family and having free time is like a huge part of their life. So they have a lot less stress than we do here. And I think it really shows in how healthy they are, considering, that they did get hit with radiation from Fukushima at the beginning. We know that from all of the different simulations that have been done. It's, evidenced in the plants. There seems to be elevated radiation levels in their seafood, in their seaweed, so it's around them, but they're not getting the high air readings that we're getting here, especially in the northern part of the states. And they have a much more healthy lifestyle. So they have a lot of things going for them because of that. And I don't think they're into like, supplements and things like we are here either. Diet and lifestyle, we all know that we should do it, but now like you almost have to do it if you want to prolong your life. So it was a great trip, and I missed you guys, and I wish I could have broadcasted from there, because I was just sitting around. I could have done it pretty easily if I had a good connection, but they don't have Wi-Fi like we do either, and that could be another consideration for their health, is that their Wi-Fi spots are very localized, like in this like huge resort that we stayed in. If you purchased, Wi-Fi, and it was like $6 for half an hour to use, you could only be in this little room with their computers, or you had to sit in the lobby to use your phone or computer. It wasn't all over the resort. Like you couldn't use your computer in your room. And
it doesn't sound cheap either.
$6 for half an hour for like international. Yeah, and it was kind of as soon as you get on, you get hit with like, the Mexican YouTube. It was hard. You couldn't log into Facebook because Facebook doesn't recognize you from a different computer. They ask you all these security questions. I could never get on Facebook there.
Sure, man. Somebody from Mexico trying to get in.
Yeah.
Well, how are you feeling today after all your antibiotics, and you're back home.
I'm pretty wiped out, actually, since I got
Okay.
back. Really
Yeah.
tired. Traveling is hard.
Yeah.
Traveling that far, I haven't gone anywhere in such a long time that I just forgot, like, just what a pain it is to, like, to travel. And now with the TSA, like in Charlotte when we came in from the international flight, wow,
Yeah.
they are hardcore there. They like yell at you. Like they really try to intimidate people that are coming in from overseas or from out of the
So you
country.
had to clear customs first,
You have to
right?
clear customs first before you got to your like next flight.
Right.
And we only had one carry-on or one checked bag for all of us.
Right.
So
Right.
everybody else just carried their stuff, and which is really the way to go in case you end up with like disruptions and things like that in your flight. But they
Yeah.
confiscated, like they took all of our suntan lotion. They took, you can't have anything over 3 milliliters
Ounces. Yeah.
in your bag, or they take it. And we had like this giant bag of like suntan lotion and stuff that they
Yeah.
took
It's. I've been there. You
to
need. You
Cancun.
need no, just to the checkout place where if you don't have the pre-approved sign, you don't get it.
Yeah. What's
Okay.
been going on with the rads here? No,
She's saying something about quakes today. The rads have been quiet. I caught a wave through Seattle last week. They got some heavy rain. Sitka, Alaska is right on the coast. They went way up, 30%. I was tracking some nice plumes in your area, but unfortunately, the key operators in those areas have disappeared this week. They're leaving me with a vacuum. I can't tell what's going on because some of the major players on Radiation Network are gone and they're not giving me the stuff that I need to go on.
Are they gone, like they've unplugged for good?
Yeah, you never know. And there is one guy who has a history, and he's learned how to recut his chart every 80 minutes. So every time I check it, it's just begun. So I'm just waiting for it to settle back down. But I've looked at the numbers today, and there is nothing on the national map to indicate anything out of the ordinary. Now, I don't know what our nuke plants are doing today, and or what the frackers are up to. What I do know is that we're still circling the Earth with some of this stuff. That we have seen some hard spikes in the last 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish, like Carlos in Hawaii would come back. But I've been getting readings out of Japan, and I've been getting a couple out of Australia. Australia reads up a bit, and Osaka, Japan has had a slow creep. They're far to the southwest of
Been
all
a big earthquake though there about
They
like
did,
5 days ago.
Yeah, they're up higher than they were last year.
I met that guy Steve Thompson from Osaka who was here visiting family. Me and Miss Milky went and met him for coffee, and he wasn't sure what the rat situation was there in terms of like burning trash. But another guy that I just made friends with, Shinichi, on Facebook, told me they are burning trash in Osaka. He could verify that.
Adam was speaking about the very same thing. Even if they tell you they're not, you never. I can't trust anybody or any of the reports, and that's really a far way to truck stuff to burn. By the way,
Yeah.
and they were doing pretty good. They were pretty upset, Osaka, about having to incinerate.
Yeah, he thought, Steve had thought that the people were fighting it adequately, like they were petitioning against it, they were speaking out about it.
Because they like to dump the ashes offshore, and they put it right in the water, and their whole program the big piles of things all over the place with tarps over them, and it turns out that they're running terabecquerels. And Tokyo got a little hit last week. There was a yellow fog alert.
Again?
So, no, just that one.
Huh.
But it was back about 10 days ago, actually. And so they're, they never know when. There was a pretty healthy earthquake there yesterday.
Well, it's good to hear that the rats are stable over here, considering everything that went on with the rat chewing through, and then the fence and all this stuff, and that the place is basically falling apart. But stable for me right now. My counter's at 54.
Yeah, but you see, that's too high for someone like you to spend all your time there.
Yeah, or someone like my kids.
I'm
if they're going to live through
that. I am a half of that, Christina.
Yeah.
I run half of your background. I get half the radiation every day, all the time. So, I was concerned because many valid low-level reports have come out that it's actually better if you get your mega dose once than you live around these kinds of things. So I don't know what my advice is for Michigan. I keep hoping that we're going to clear out. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Grand Rapids has been showing some lower numbers, and your area has been showing some lower numbers. Because of the trouble I've had working the radio show, I've completely shut down all my other laptop functions. So I can't really report live right now.
Okay.
Because I've chosen to prioritize getting your show clear. But I will be looking this afternoon. Please come over. The reports that I think are alert level, I post on your page, and we post them in other Facebook places, and especially they always get posted at radwatch.info.
Okay, and that's radwatch.info spelled out.
Yep. Right.
We do have one event notification report that was posted on Any News Today. This was posted yesterday, but it was an event that happened on April 11th. There was an unusual event for a fire lasting greater than 15 minutes at Wolf Creek, and that's in Kansas, I believe.
Right.
They had a fire that was in the turbine building, stairwell, and on the auxiliary boiler room roof. The fire was extinguished. After 15 minutes, cool to the touch, off-site fire department was called and responded, but their support in fire suppression was not required. So I don't see any cause stated for how that happened.
No.
We're going to be bringing on Mary Osbourne in a minute to tell us what's going on at TMI today. And also,
so that unit is shut down there now.
We have another two-headed bull shark that was found, and this time it was in the Indian Ocean. There was a story that ran on ABC News last week asking why all the mutations in the last couple of years. Hi, Mary.
Okay, hi.
Hi, you're on the air with Christina and Noki. How are you doing today?
Pretty good right now.
Well, you've got some excitement going on again, which has got to be hard to deal with after everything that you have been through and lived through and experienced with TMI. And it's my understanding this drill that they're running at TMI today is the first U.S. power plant that's being formally tested on a terrorist attack plan.
Yes. Yeah, 3 different newspapers had tiny little articles on it. And it's going to start either this afternoon or this evening. They expect 3 to 6 hours. And it is the first hostile action emergency drill at a nuclear power plant. And it's not a case where equipment failure, would cause radiation releases, but more the scenario of attacks by terrorists or causing a 10-mile radius evacuation. So the other nuclear plants are supposed to start this type of a drill by 2015.
Okay, so this is the first one, and I understand from this Penn Live article that was posted today, it says in order to avoid giving drill participants a head start,
Right.
the fictional attack scenario is being kept secret.
Yes, that's what I was under the impression too. So they're going to actually have a drill where the responders are going to have to, and I hope they understand the nuclear stuff because it's a totally different thing. But, they're going to have to handle something as though it was real, a reality type thing, because they don't have a clue of what the issue is going to be, whether a terrorist attacks by an airplane or on the ground. They run through the gates, drive their vehicles through, which has already happened. A mentally ill person got on site maybe 20 years ago, scared the heck out of the employees at TMI, and they didn't know who he was or what he was, but later they did find out. So it's not the first time that somebody's gotten on site. And Eric Epstein, who's the head of 3 Mile Island Alert, took a journalist recently down to 3 Mile Island. They went down to the south gate. There's 2 gates, a north one and a south one. They walked on site and did not get arrested. And it's a federal offense if you trespass on a nuclear power plant. So, they just didn't want the news media to, get hot on this one. But, they still haven't learned their lesson, whether it's this type of a drill, but it's really going to be very interesting to find out. It's almost like I'm seeing the China syndrome all over again. First the China syndrome, then 3 Mile Island happened. So this training session, really is going to be interesting, but it's not the best. The best thing to do is to shut down all the nukes. But, they do need to prepare for this, and so I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out. And they're actually going to have a meeting on Friday around 11:30 where the public will be invited to hear what their early plans are, as far as what they decide, the type of scenario and what the results are. They're actually allowing the public to attend that.
I've mentioned you a few times since we had you on the show before, and just how similar your story is to all of us paying attention to Fukushima. You went through this, years and years and years before any of us, but we've had just such similar feelings, emotionally, mentally. Having this drill go on today is really got to be hard for you. I mean, you just had the anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now this. Are there going to be news crews covering this at all, do you think?
I don't know if they're even allowed. They may be down site. They have an observation center across, from the middle of the river. It's their offices are on the other side of the observation center, and it's for the public. We used to be able to go upstairs, and they had a fenced-in area where you could look with the binocular type machine and look at 3 Mile Island closer up, and I don't think that's there anymore. But the press, usually when there's an event down there, that's where they go. So I'm assuming the local press will be there. And also, I suspect that some of them will attend the Friday morning meeting.
Well, we'll continue to watch for updates on that. I hope Any News will run something. I sent them the link to Penn Live this morning.
Good.
And I know you'll be paying attention to things. Are you running your meter?
My meter, I have 2 radiation meters in my house, and I have them on all the time. And I don't think they're going to deliberately release radiation. I mean, that's a possibility because they have that kind of mentality.
Right.
But I don't think they would be doing that. But, it's always one of the weird things. When we evacuated, I wrote a few notes. And one of my notes was, we need some kind of a monitoring device because I won't ever feel safe around here without one. So we have 2 radiation monitoring networks. The utility got sued And so some of the money went to one organization, and then another thing happened, and another organization was founded. So we have an EFMR monitoring network and then a citizens one. And, they do still take readings, and they document that kind of stuff ever since the monitors were received.
How often do you catch a rise in radiation levels? Someone in the chat room is asking.
Okay, when they were doing the cleanup, which was over 10 years of releasing radiation, air, water, all kinds of stuff, every time the wind blew my direction, I would have either an elevation, or if I was home, within 15 minutes I would get a sore throat. And that had continued for quite a while, and then all of a sudden, I haven't had an alarm in a couple of years. And it's either they're dumping the stuff out in the middle of the night, or they're watching which way the wind blows, because I'm sure they know where all the monitors are located. And they may actually even hold it up a little better, or maybe they're just changing the filters properly. But I have no idea, what's going on. But during Fukushima, we did have elevated readings. My monitors did not go off, but it was almost borderline, because we have ours set at 30 counts per minute, and it used to be 10 to 12 counts per minute for normal background in this area, at least where I live. And occasionally it goes up to 24, 26, and, so far, recently it has not hit 30 counts per minute.
Wow. That's interesting. I was just telling Noki that my meter's been running like 50 to 70 over the last 2 days in Michigan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That seems to be the new normal around here, and in very stark contrast to the readings I was getting in Mexico. I was there last week, and I ran my meter all the time, and the highest we would get is like 20 just in open air readings, except when it rained.
Wow. Now, with your readings, do you always monitor which way the wind is blowing? Because I do my arrows, where the plant is, and, whichever way the wind is blowing, I kind of put an arrow down so I know where it's coming from.
Yeah, our wind changes direction quite a bit because the Great Lakes cause a lot of interesting weather situations. The weather can change suddenly, so the wind is always coming from a different direction. It seems most of the time it blows up from the south where I live, and and then we have a lot of nuke plants that we're downwind from. Not only Michigan, well, U of M has a reactor. I'm directly downwind from that. Palisades, I'm directly downwind from that. I'm a little bit north of Fermi, but, in Illinois, around Chicago, they've got like 6, and they've had multiple problems with those plants over the last year or two.
So, Mary, you are averaging a little more than you were before Fukushima?
Right now, it's a tiny bit more. And like I said, my monitors are in the house right now. They can't, be outside because of rain.
We don't get to speak to someone very often who is monitoring and had a good idea of their background before Fukushima.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, this area, they did pretty good. And EFMR.org, you could probably check that out. I don't really do computer, internet stuff, very often, but that's a friend of mine, Eric Epstein, is in charge of that organization. And Dickinson College had classes for us in order to teach us the proper way to operate, how to do radiation readings and things like that. So it's been pretty interesting.
And you keep that Geiger counting running all the time?
All the time. I do not shut them off.
Yeah.
What kind of meters do you have?
I have a Rad Alert, which is the original one, and then later on I got a Rad Alert 50. And I have the audio off almost all the time, but right now I'm putting them on. Let me see, alert. Yeah, see how it goes. But
Get away! They get too close to me. Here, we'll feed them again. Crap! Oh. You want me to run up and grab some more? We can save them for later. Ready? Mom, take a picture. I'm filming you. Oh, hey. Here, I'll take a picture of them.